Earth was in trouble. The oceans rose higher each year. Farms turned to dust. Cities fought over clean water. Countries threatened each other with weapons that could destroy everything. It was the late 21st century, and many people feared humanity would not survive another 100 years. Then the aliens came. They arrived in ships that looked like silver clouds. They did not attack or hide. They simply appeared one day above every major city on Earth. People were scared at first. Some ran. Some prayed. Some grabbed guns. But the aliens sent a message of peace to every phone, computer, and television on the planet. "We are representatives of the Galactic Council," the message said. "We have watched your civilization for many years. We wish to welcome you to the greater community of intelligent species." Hope spread across Earth. People danced in streets. Leaders called for calm and unity. For the first time in decades, humans stopped fighting each other and looked up at the stars with wonder. The alien ships landed in an open field outside Geneva. World leaders gathered there to meet the visitors. The aliens called themselves the Zantari. They stood 7 feet tall with blue skin that shimmered like water. Their leader was High Counselor Zextaria, who spoke perfect English in a voice that sounded like gentle music. "We offer Earth membership in the Galactic Council," Zextaria said. "We will share some technology. We will help solve your environmental problems. We will guide your development." John Carter was chosen as United Earth Ambassador. He was a quiet man with gray hair who had once been a history professor before entering politics. He smiled and bowed to the aliens, but something in their words bothered him. "What does membership involve?" he asked. Zestaria's smile never changed. "Earth will be classified as a Tier 7 civilization. This is appropriate for your primitive development and violent tendencies. You will follow Council guidelines for controlled growth. You will provide resources the Council needs. You will accept Council oversight of your activities." Later that night, John met with Colonel Susan Wright in a secure underground room. Susan had sharp eyes and always spoke directly. "They're not here to help us," she said. "They're here to control us." John nodded. "I think you're right, but we can't fight them. Their technology is too advanced." "Then we need another option," Susan said. "Something they won't expect." That meeting was the beginning of Project Exodus. For 10 years, John publicly agreed to all Council demands. Earth accepted its place as a Tier 7 civilization. Council. Observers lived among humans, watching everything. They restricted human technology. They took Earth's resources. They controlled human population growth. But in secret, humanity was planning something the Council never imagined. Deep in the asteroid belt, hidden from Council sensors, humans built enormous ships. These weren't warships. They were homes that could travel through space for generations. Engineers worked in secret, developing technologies the Council had forbidden. Families were quietly selected for the journey. Alan Frost was the lead engineer on the project. He had a mind that could solve problems no one else understood. He worked day and night, improving the engines that would carry humanity to distant stars. "The Council thinks we're simple," he told his team. "That's our advantage." Dr. Olivia Martinez led the biology team. She developed systems to grow food on the ships and keep people healthy during the long journey. "We're not running away," she often said. "We're running towards something better." Colonel Susan Wright managed security. She made sure the Council never discovered their plans. Her teams created false data to hide the movement of people and resources. She trained the soldiers who would protect the fleet. The Council continued to make more demands. They restricted Earth's internet. They banned certain books. They limited how many children families could have. They said these rules were for humanity's own good. to help an unstable species develop properly. John Carter smiled and agreed to everything. All the while, the secret ships grew larger. More than 50 massive vessels, each able to carry thousands of people, waited in the darkness of space. Then came the night of departure. It was summer in the northern hemisphere. The council observers had noticed population numbers dropping, but believed it was due to their own control measures. They never realized that for months, people had been quietly leaving Earth in small groups. On that night, the largest movement of humans in history took place. 80% of Earth's remaining population boarded shuttles that took them to the waiting ships. They brought only what they could carry. They left behind homes, possessions, and the planet of their birth. John Carter was one of the last to leave. He stood in his empty office and looked out the window at the city lights. "Goodbye," he whispered to Earth. As the Exodus ships prepared to leave the solar system, a group of volunteers remained behind. These caretakers would maintain the appearance of normal human civilization. They would hide the truth from the council. They would make sure Earth looked populated enough that the aliens wouldn't become suspicious. Bill Mason was one of these caretakers. He and his family moved into a neighborhood that had been full the day before, but was now almost empty. They turned lights on in different houses each night. They moved cars around. They created the illusion of a community. "How long will we have to do this?" his daughter asked. "As long as necessary," Bill said, "until our people are safe." The great ships moved silently away from Earth, using paths that avoided council detection. They carried humanity's hopes, dreams, and future among the stars. Their destination was far beyond council space. In regions the aliens had never explored. High Counselor Xteria stood on the observation deck of his ship, looking down at Earth. Something felt different, but he couldn't identify what had changed. The humans continued their simple lives. They worked in their fields and factories. They obeyed council rules, primitive but learning, he noted in his report. Population numbers decreasing as expected under our guidance. The species shows signs of becoming a proper council member in perhaps 1,000 years. He had no idea that he was watching a performance. The real human story was already moving far beyond his reach, into the darkness between stars. On the lead ship, named Hope, Susan Wright looked at the display, showing Earth growing smaller behind them. John Carter stood beside her, his face reflecting the blue light of the screen. "Do you think we'll ever return?" Susan asked. John watched until Earth was just a small dot. "Yes," he said. "But when we do, it will be on our terms, not theirs." The ships accelerated, leaving the solar system behind. Humanity had departed without firing a shot or making a threat. They had simply chosen a different path. They would spend generations in space, developing their own society away from council control. They would grow stronger, smarter, and more unified. And someday, when the council had forgotten them or dismissed them as just another obedient lower species, humanity would return. The great Exodus fleet disappeared into the depths of space, carrying the future of the human race to distant stars and unknown worlds. 200 years passed as the human ships traveled through space. The journey was long and difficult. The ships moved far beyond the edges of council space toward a distant area called the Perseus Arm. No council ships ever came this far. This was exactly what humans wanted. Life on the ships was hard at first. Space was limited. Food was carefully rationed. Water was recycled over and over. Every resource was precious. Nothing could be wasted. Children were born who never saw Earth. They grew up hearing stories about blue skies and open fields. To them, Earth was just a legend. Patricia Miller was the fleet commander. She had not been born on Earth. Her grandmother had told her stories about trees and oceans, but Patricia only knew the metal walls of the ships. She was strong and fair. When people argued over space or resources, she found solutions that worked for everyone. "We are not just surviving," she often told the fleet. "We are preparing." Every day takes us farther from council control and closer to our new home. The fleet stayed together as it traveled. Smaller ships sometimes went ahead to scout the path. They avoided all contact with other species. They did not want anyone to report back to the council. Secrecy was their best protection. Some people grew tired of the journey. They questioned if they would ever find a suitable planet. Some wondered if they should turn back to Earth. Patricia listened to these concerns, but kept the fleet moving forward. Their path had been chosen carefully before they left Earth. Their destination was based on old data that suggested habitable planets. After 200 years of travel, the scouts finally found what they were looking for: a cluster of stars with several planets that could support human life. The lead scout ship sent a message back to the fleet: "We found haven." The first planet they reached had clean air, fresh water, and fertile soil. It had 2 moons and a day that was 26 hours long. The sky was more purple than blue. The plants were strange colors, but tests showed humans could live there safely. They named this world HFY. People cried when they first stepped onto solid ground. Many fell to their knees and touched the dirt with trembling hands. Children ran in open spaces for the first time. The fleet had reached its destination. Greg Nelson was the chief scientist for the fleet. He studied the new planets carefully. "These worlds have minerals and energy sources the Council doesn't know about," he told Patricia. "We can build things here they would never allow on Earth." Under the guidance of Linda Howard, the development director, humans began to build their new society. They did not repeat the mistakes of Earth. They balanced technology with care for their environment. They built cities that worked with the natural features of the land instead of destroying them. Engineers Frank Williams and Catherine Bell led teams that made amazing discoveries. Without council restrictions, humans quickly advanced their technology. They developed new types of energy, better computers, and improved medicine. They created artificial intelligence partners that helped solve complex problems. They learned how to modify their own genes to resist diseases on the new planets. The most important breakthrough came from Dr. Peter Young and his physics team. They discovered what they called phase shift technology. This allowed ships to move through different dimensions for short periods. Ships using this technology could travel much faster than normal. They were also completely invisible to regular scanning systems. If the Council ever found them, this technology would give humans a huge advantage. As the Haven colonies grew, humans always remembered Earth. They built a special communication system that could send messages back to their home planet without the Council detecting them. The messages took years to travel the vast distance, but they maintained the connection to the caretakers who had stayed behind. On Earth, the caretakers had continued their important work. Each generation taught the next how to maintain the illusion of a normal human society. They showed Council observers exactly what they expected to see: a primitive species slowly developing under guidance. They fed false information to Council scientists. They hid their secret communications with the Haven colonies. Steve Rogers was a 6th-generation caretaker. His family had been performing this duty since the Exodus. He lived in a small community in what had once been called Minnesota. Council observers visited his town regularly. Steve knew exactly how to act around them. "Yes, High Observer," he would say with just the right amount of respect and fear. "We are grateful for Council wisdom. Our crop yields are exactly as you predicted they would be with your guidance." The observer would nod, making notes on a device. "Your community shows appropriate development for a Tier 7 species. Continue your current activities. Once the observer left, Steve would send real data to HFY using the hidden communication system. He reported on Council activities, their technology, and their plans for Earth. This information helped the Haven colonies prepare for a possible future encounter. On HFY, the human leadership reviewed these reports carefully. They built a detailed understanding of Council strengths and weaknesses. They prepared defenses and strategies. They never forgot that someday they might need to protect themselves from Council discovery. The Haven colonies grew and expanded. To nearby planets, the population increased. More ships were built using the new technologies. Humans became stronger and more advanced than they had ever been on Earth. They developed a culture that valued knowledge, cooperation, and exploration. Children on HFY learned about Earth in school. They saw pictures of the blue planet and its single moon. They heard stories about the Council and why their ancestors had left. They were taught that someday humans might return to their original home. At night, people on HFY would sometimes look up at the stars, trying to find the one that might be Earth's sun. It was too far away to see clearly, but they knew it was there. Many wondered what would happen if humans and the Council ever met again. After 300 years of separation, most people believed the Council had forgotten about humans. They thought Earth was probably just considered another obedient lower world that provided resources and caused no trouble. The Council likely had no idea that humanity had grown so powerful, so far away. But the universe is vast, and even in vast places, paths sometimes cross unexpectedly. The quiet development of humanity was about to face its first real test. The Council patrol ship Righteous Mandate moved slowly along the edge of known space. It was a routine mission. The ship checked for unauthorized activities and mapped unexplored regions. Commander Villiner was bored. Nothing interesting ever happened on these patrols. He had been doing this job for 12 years and had never found anything worth reporting. His sensor officer suddenly made a strange sound. "Commander, I am detecting unusual energy patterns at the edge of the Perseus." Villanor moved to the sensor station. The readings showed energy signatures that did not match any known natural phenomenon. They pulsed in regular patterns that suggested artificial creation. "Record all data," Villanor ordered. "We will report this to Council Science Division when we return." 2 weeks later, Villanor stood before a panel of Council scientists. He showed them the sensor readings and explained where they were found. The scientists looked bored. "These are just natural energy discharges from stellar phenomena," the lead scientist said. "Nothing worth our attention." One scientist disagreed. His name was Kexelather. He was younger than the others and had a reputation for unusual ideas. "These patterns are too regular to be natural. I believe they indicate artificial technology of some kind." The other scientists laughed. "There are no advanced civilizations in that region, Kexelather. Your imagination is too active, as usual." Kexelather did not argue, but he was not convinced. After the meeting, he began his own investigation. He requested all patrol data from the Perseus Arm region for the past 50 years. He studied the records carefully and found more unexplained energy signatures. They were rare and scattered, but they existed. Something was happening in that distant region of space. On HFY, the Human Leadership Council was meeting. They gathered in a large room with windows overlooking the capital city. 300 years after arriving, the colony had grown into a thriving civilization. The city had tall buildings, clean energy systems, and beautiful parks. It looked nothing like Earth cities, but showed what humans could build when free to develop their own path. Ryan Cooper was the security director. He had a serious face and rarely smiled. "Our long-range sensors detected a Council patrol ship near the outer boundary of our space. It lingered in the area longer than usual. It may have detected something. Kelly Morgan was the diplomatic advisor. She was tall with dark skin and spoke in a calm voice. After 300 years, it was inevitable that the Council would eventually detect signs of our presence. We need to decide how to respond. The Council debated what to do. Ryan wanted to increase security and avoid all contact with the Council. Kelly thought it might be time to reveal themselves carefully. Others had different opinions. The debate continued for hours without a clear decision. Meanwhile, a small human scout ship was returning from an exploration mission. The ship was testing new sensors in the space between Haven and Council territories. It carried a crew of only 5 people. The captain was Jeff Barnes, a young officer on his first command. "Start calculating the phase shift return to HFY, Jeff told his navigator. "We've collected enough data for this mission." As they prepared to return home, the ship's sensors detected another vessel approaching. It was not following regular Council patrol routes. It seemed to be searching for something specific. On that other ship, Kexalather stood on the bridge. He had taken a research vessel without proper authorization. His superiors thought he was conducting regular studies in a different sector. Instead, he had come to investigate the strange energy readings. "I'm detecting an unusual signature ahead," his sensor officer reported. "It doesn't match any known ship configuration." Kexalather felt excitement build inside him. "Move closer. Prepare to capture detailed scans." Jeff Barnes saw the approaching ship on his sensors. Council research vessel. "They've changed course to intercept us. They must have detected our presence." The crew looked worried. This was not supposed to happen. Human ships had avoided Council contact for 300 years. "Prepare for emergency phase shift," Jeff ordered. "We need to disappear before they get detailed scans." Kexalather watched in amazement as the unidentified ship suddenly shimmered and vanished from both visual and sensor detection. He had never seen technology like this before. It was far beyond current Council capabilities. "Where did it go?" he demanded. His officers had no answers. The ship had simply disappeared. But before it vanished, they had captured partial sensor readings. The data was incomplete, but showed technology that should not exist in this region. Of Space Dot, when they analyzed the little data they had collected, Kexalather made a shocking discovery. The ship's design had elements that resembled very old human engineering principles, but vastly improved. It was impossible, but the evidence suggested the ship was of human origin. "It cannot be," he whispered to himself. "Humans are a primitive, Tier 7 species under Council control." He ordered his ship to return to Council space immediately. He needed to report his findings. Jeff Barnes and his crew arrived back at HFY safely. They immediately reported the encounter to the Leadership Council. This was the closest direct contact with Council representatives in 3 centuries. Ryan Cooper called an emergency meeting. A Council research vessel nearly made contact with one of our scout ships. Our phase shift technology prevented detailed scans, but they may have gathered some information. The Council realized they needed to prepare for possible discovery. They increased security patrols around Haven space. They accelerated military preparations that had been developing for generations. They sent urgent messages to Earth, warning the caretakers of possible increased Council attention. Kexalather returned to Council space and presented his findings to the Science Division. He showed them the sensor data and explained his theory about advanced human technology. The senior scientists laughed at him. "Humans? Advanced technology? Impossible. They are one of our most compliant lower species. They can barely manage basic spaceflight within their own system." "But the data suggests," Kexalather tried to argue. "The data is obviously flawed," the lead scientist interrupted. Your equipment must have malfunctioned. Or perhaps you encountered an unknown species. But it certainly wasn't humans. That is absurd. Kexalather was removed from his research position and assigned to administrative duties. His reports were filed away and forgotten. The Council had no interest in wild theories about advanced human technology. It contradicted everything they believed about humans. On Earth, head caretaker Samantha White received the warning message from HFY. She gathered her leadership team in a hidden, underground facility. Haven reports possible Council interest in their region of space. We need to be extra careful. The Council may increase their observation of Earth. Her team understood the seriousness of the situation. They had maintained the deception for generations. They could not fail now when it might matter most. On HFY, Admiral Eric Adams looked at the star charts showing Council space and Haven territories. The distance between them had seemed vast enough for safety. Now that barrier felt much smaller. Prepare the fleet, he ordered his officers. Increase production of phase shift drives. Train more crews. We must be ready. The quiet development of humanity might soon face its greatest challenge. The Council remained unaware of how much had changed, but the first threads of discovery had begun to unravel the secret that humans had kept for 300 years. 50 years passed since the near discovery of the human scout ship. On the Council capital world of Centaura Prime, High Counselor Drenvarax looked at reports with growing concern. The Galactic Council controlled hundreds of worlds across multiple star systems, but problems were increasing everywhere. Resources were becoming scarce on many Council worlds. Member species were complaining about shortages. Border conflicts with non-Council races were happening more often. The smooth operation of the Council system was breaking down. Drenvarax had a simple solution. He ordered increased resource extraction from lower-tier worlds. These planets had fewer rights and could not refuse Council demands. Earth was one of these worlds. On Earth, the caretakers continued their centuries-old mission. They maintained the appearance of a normal human civilization that followed Council rules. Andrew Davis was now the chief caretaker. His family had performed this duty for 8 generations. He knew exactly how to deal with Council representatives. When 3 Council ships arrived in Earth orbit with new demands, Andrew met with them. As expected, the Council representative was a tall Zantari named Velkorian. Earth must increase resource production by 200%, Velkorian announced. The Council requires more minerals and biological materials from your world. Andrew bowed his head as a proper Tier 7 representative should. With respect, High Observer, that level of extraction will cause severe damage to our ecosystems. Our people will suffer. Velkorian did not care. The needs of the Council outweigh the concerns of a Tier 7 world. You will comply or face punishment. Andrew tried to negotiate, but the Council would not listen. After the meeting, he gathered his leadership team in their hidden facility deep underground. The new extraction demands will devastate what remains of Earth's environment. The Council no longer even pretends to care about our welfare. His advisors looked grim. They had always known this day might come. For 500 years, the caretakers had protected Earth while the rest of humanity developed far away. Now, their task was becoming impossible. We have no choice, Andrew finally said. We must send the emergency signal to Haven Command. It is time for humanity to return. The hidden communication system activated. A message traveled across the vast distance to the Haven colonies. It contained 3 words. Earth needs help. On Haven Prime, Fleet Admiral Maria Rogers received the message. She was a direct descendant of Patricia Miller, who had led the original fleet to Haven. Maria had prepared her whole life for this moment. Every generation of military leaders had. trained for the possible return to Earth. "Begin Operation Homecoming," she ordered. "All ships prepare for deployment." The human defense force was vast and powerful. It included thousands of ships with technologies the Council had never seen. The phase shift drives allowed them to travel faster than any Council vessel. Their weapons were designed to disable, rather than destroy. Humans had never forgotten the Council's superior attitude, but they had not developed a desire for revenge. They wanted freedom, not war. On Earth, the Council began their increased extraction operations. They used massive machines to strip mine entire regions. They harvested plants and animals at unsustainable rates. When a community of caretakers led by Andrew Davis protested at a mining site, Council security forces destroyed the entire town. As a warning to others, Andrew escaped with a few survivors. They hid in the ruins of an old city. "This is the end of our long deception," he told his people. "We can no longer protect Earth alone." 3 days later, Council enforcers found their hiding place. The alien soldiers surrounded the humans and prepared to make an example of them. Their commander raised his hand to give the order to fire. Suddenly, the air shimmered above them. A massive ship appeared from nowhere. It was unlike any vessel the Council had ever built. It was sleek and silver, with blue energy flowing across its surface. It hovered silently over the scene. The Council soldiers fired at the ship, but their weapons had no effect. A beam of light shot down from the vessel. It surrounded Andrew and his people. When the light faded, the humans were gone. The ship shimmered again and vanished. The Council commander stared in shock. He immediately reported the incident to his superiors. Similar reports began coming in from across Earth. Strange ships were appearing, taking humans aboard and disappearing without a trace. On the Haven flagship restoration, Admiral Maria Rogers watched as the rescued caretakers arrived in the transport bay. These were the descendants of those who had stayed behind 5 centuries ago to protect Earth. Their sacrifice had allowed humanity to develop in freedom. Andrew Davis stepped forward. He looked around in amazement at the advanced ship. "You came back for us," Maria nodded. "We never forgot our promise. The Haven fleet is here. We are taking all remaining humans from Earth." Across Council space, reports flooded in about the strange occurrences on Earth. Council ships tried to stop the evacuations, but were easily disabled by Haven vessels. The human ships used their phase shift technology to appear and disappear at will. They took no hostile actions except to defend themselves and rescue Earth humans. On SciFiPrime, High Counselor Drenverax demanded answers. Where are these ships coming from? How can they appear and disappear? Why can't our weapons affect them? His advisors had no explanations. The Council had always believed humans were a primitive, compliant species. Now they faced human technology that was beyond their understanding. An old alien scientist was brought before the Council. It was Kexalather, now aged and forgotten. 50 years earlier, he had tried to warn them about advanced human technology in the Perseus arm. No one had believed him then. "I told you," Kexalather said quietly. "Humans developed beyond our knowledge. They left Council space centuries ago and built their own civilization without our interference or limitations." Drenverax was furious. "Impossible. Humans are a tier 7 species. They cannot have this level of advancement." Kexalather smiled sadly. "Your arrogance blinded you. The Council always underestimated humans. While you thought they were obediently following your rules on Earth, most of their species was developing freely elsewhere." Reports continued to arrive from across Council space. Human ships had been sighted near multiple Council worlds. They did not attack. They simply observed. Their presence alone caused panic among Council species who had always believed humans were inferior. The Council tried to keep the situation secret, But word spread quickly. Lower-tier species began to question the council system. If humans had advanced so dramatically outside council control, perhaps the council was not as beneficial as claimed. On Earth, the evacuation continued. Within days, all remaining humans were removed from the planet. They left behind empty cities and a depleted world that had suffered under council extraction for centuries. The last human to leave Earth was Andrew Davis. He stood in the transport bay of a haven ship and looked at a view screen showing the blue planet below. "Will we ever return?" he asked. The ship captain nodded. "Yes, but not until the council understands that humanity will no longer accept their control. Earth will heal in time, and we will help it recover." The ship activated its phase shift drive and disappeared from Earth orbit. For the first time in its long history, Earth had no human presence. The Council had lost their Tier 7 species without firing a shot in their defense. The Galactic Council faced a crisis unlike any in its history. A species they had dismissed as primitive had returned with power they could not match. And now that species was making its presence known throughout Council space. 1 week after the evacuation of Earth, a massive human ship appeared in orbit around SciFiPrime, the capital world of the Galactic Council. The ship was larger than any Council vessel. It shimmered with blue energy and moved with impossible grace. Council defense ships surrounded it, but did not fire. They had seen how ineffective their weapons were against human technology. Message was broadcast to the Council headquarters. "This is Ambassador Daniel Hayes of the United Human Worlds. We request a full Council session. We come in peace despite your historical treatment of our species." The Council chamber was filled with representatives from hundreds of worlds. They watched nervously as Daniel Hayes entered. He was a tall man with dark skin and gray hair. He walked with confidence, but showed no aggression. 2 other humans accompanied him. One was a woman named Laura Bennett, the security director for the human fleet. The other was Andrew Davis, the former chief caretaker of Earth. High Counselor Drenvarax sat on the elevated central platform. His blue skin had paled with stress. "The Council recognizes the human delegation," he said formally. "Explain your actions and the illegal technology you have developed outside Council oversight." Daniel smiled slightly. "With respect, High Counselor, we developed our technology legally. The Council has no authority over regions outside its borders. When humanity left Council space 500 years ago, we broke no laws." A murmur ran through the chamber. Many Council members had not known humans had left their home world. They had always believed humans were still a primitive species on Earth. "You deceived the Council," Drenvarax accused. "You maintained a false presence on Earth while your main population developed elsewhere." Andrew Davis stepped forward. "My ancestors stayed behind to protect Earth from exploitation. We were the caretakers. For 500 years, we maintained the deception while humanity built a new civilization beyond your reach." Daniel continued the explanation. "When the first Council ships arrived on Earth, your representative High Counselor Zexteria informed us that humans would always be classified as a Tier 7 species due to our primitive development and violent tendencies. Rather than accept permanent inferior status, we chose to leave quietly and develop on our own terms." He activated a holographic display that showed the Haven worlds. The Council members gasped at the beautiful cities and advanced technology. These were not the creations of a primitive species. In the Perseus Arm, far beyond Council space, we found habitable worlds rich with resources you do not have. We built our civilization without the restrictions the Council placed on us. We developed technologies based on principles you have not discovered. Laura Bennett stepped forward. "We might have remained separate forever, but your increased demands on Earth forced our return. The caretakers could no longer protect our home world from Council exploitation. Many Council members looked uncomfortable. The lower-tier worlds had long complained about resource extraction, but the Council had ignored them. DrenVirak's anger grew as he listened. Your actions threaten the stability of the Council system. Your technology violates our regulations. You must submit to Council authority and share your advancements for proper control and distribution. Daniel shook his head. We did not return to submit, High Counselor. We returned to offer a new relationship between humans and the Council. One based on mutual respect rather than the tiered system that has kept many species subordinate. He showed another hologram. This one displayed resource processing technology that could solve many of the shortages facing Council worlds. We offer to share knowledge that will benefit all species, not just those in the upper tiers. We propose a partnership rather than the dominance you have enforced for thousands of years. Many Council members seemed interested in this offer. The resource shortages had affected all worlds to some degree, but DrenVirak saw only a threat to his power and the Council system he controlled. The Council does not negotiate with lesser species who have violated our laws, he declared. I hereby classify humans as a dangerous rogue species. All Council forces are ordered to contain and control this threat. Throughout Council space, military ships received the order to move against human vessels. But when they tried to activate their weapon systems, nothing happened. Communication networks stopped working. Navigation systems went offline. In the Council chamber, Lavra Bennett spoke calmly. We have temporarily disabled your military capabilities. No one has been harmed. This is not an attack, but a demonstration. She activated another hologram showing human ships throughout Council space. We could have destroyed the Council at any time, but that was never our intention. We seek cooperation, not conquest. DrenVirak stood in fury. This is an act of war. No, Daniel replied. This is an invitation to change. For too long, the Council has divided species into tiers, treating some as inherently superior to others. This system has led to exploitation and stagnation. The resource shortages you face now are the result of this flawed approach. Andrew Davis addressed the chamber. I lived on Earth under Council rule. I saw firsthand how the tiered system harmed worlds classified as lesser. But I also saw how many Council representatives genuinely wanted to help. The system itself is the problem, not all the people within it. Daniel continued. Humans have already formed alliances with species beyond Council space. We have also spoken with many of your lower-tier members who suffer under current policies. Together, we propose a new organization, the Concordat, a partnership of equals where all contribute based on their abilities and receive based on their needs. The Council chamber erupted in debate. Some members, particularly those from upper-tier worlds, supported DrenVirak's position. But many others, especially from lower-tier worlds, were interested in the human proposal. An aged Centauri rose to speak. It was Miralathar, daughter of Kexalathar, who had first tried to warn the Council about advanced human technology. My father saw the truth when others refused to see. The Council has grown complacent and arrogant. Perhaps it is time for change. Over the following weeks, the debate continued. The Council split into factions. DrenVirak and his supporters refused all compromise. They insisted on maintaining the traditional Council structure with its rigid tier system. But they found their power diminishing as more worlds expressed interest in the Concordat. Humans did not force the issue. They simply presented their alternative and allowed each species to choose. They reactivated all Council systems once it was clear no immediate attacks would occur. Then they waited patiently while the debate continued. One by one, worlds began to leave the Council and join the Concordat. First came the lower-tier species who had suffered most under Council rule. and middle-tier worlds attracted by the resource-sharing technologies humans offered. Eventually, even some upper-tier species recognized that the Concordat offered a more sustainable future than the failing Council system. 5 years after humanity's return, the Galactic Council had largely dissolved. The Concordat had become the primary interstellar organization in the galaxy. Drenverax and a few loyalists maintained a small version of the Council, but their influence continued to decline. Earth began to recover from centuries of exploitation. Human and alien environmental experts worked together to restore its ecosystems. It would take generations to heal completely, but the process had begun. Throughout the galaxy, species that had once been separated by the tier system now worked together as equals. Technologies were shared freely, leading to new advancements that benefited all. The resource shortages that had threatened the Council were solved through better distribution and more efficient processing. On Haven Prime, Old Vextalon the Last, Council historian recorded the final entry in the official Council records. They left in silence when we would not listen. They returned with wisdom when we could no longer speak. In their absence, they became what we feared most, not conquerors, but teachers who showed us the smallness of our vision. Humanity had come full circle. They had left quietly, developed, in secret, and returned not for revenge, but to offer a better way forward for all species. The universe would never be the same.